The crystalline walls of the throne chamber trembled as Queen Valeria's claws scraped against her seat. Her child, Prince Zephon, knelt before her with tears streaming down his scaled cheeks, the same question burning in his eyes that had tormented her for months. "Please, Mother, just one human, that's all I ask." The royal guards shifted imperceptibly, their hands moving closer to their plasma rifles. Commander Thex stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade through silk. "Your Majesty, the prince has made this request 47 times. Perhaps clarification is needed?" Queen Valeria's mind raced back to the day everything changed. 3 cycles ago, their forces had captured a human research vessel near the Proxima border. Standard procedure demanded immediate interrogation followed by execution. But something had gone wrong, terribly wrong. The humans had been different. Not the savage warriors her intelligence reports described, but scientists, healers, and among them had been one who changed everything. Dr. Elena Martinez, a xenobiologist who spoke perfect Zentari and treated her captors with impossible kindness. "Mother," Zephon whispered, his voice cracking, "you don't understand what they did to me." The queen's blood froze. During the human capture, Zephon had suffered a severe injury, a genetic condition that should have been fatal. Their own medical technology had failed. But the human doctor had volunteered to help, working tirelessly for 6 days to save the prince's life. "The human healer," she said slowly. "Elena Martinez." "She saved me when our own doctors gave up," Zephon said. "But that's not why I need a human, Mother." "It's what she taught me." Commander Thex's grip tightened on his weapon. "Your Majesty, harboring enemy species violates 17 interstellar treaties. She's not our enemy," Zephon's cry echoed through the chamber. "None of them were. They could have poisoned me, used me as leverage, done anything. Instead, she sat by my bedside and told me stories about Earth, about compassion.
About hope. The Queen felt her world tilting.
Everything she'd believed about humans, their cruelty, their conquest-driven nature, clashed with her son's words. But deeper questions gnawed at her. Why would a human risk everything to save an alien child? What game were they playing? "Where are the humans now?" she asked. Commander Thex's silence stretched too long. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Commander, where are they executed, Your Majesty? Standard protocol." The sound that escaped Zephon's throat was unlike anything she'd ever heard. Raw, broken, inhuman, despite coming from her own blood. He collapsed to the floor, his body shaking with grief so profound it seemed to drain the light from the chamber. "You killed her," he whispered. "You killed the only being who ever showed me what it meant to truly heal instead of merely fixing." The Queen rose from her throne, her own pain mixing with confusion and growing dread. If the humans were dead, why was her son still asking for one? What wasn't he telling her? "Zephon, explain yourself. Now." Her son lifted his head, and she saw something in his eyes that chilled her. Determination forged in loss, wisdom born from witnessing something she couldn't comprehend. "Dr. Martinez didn't just heal my body, Mother. She taught me about human medicine, their methods. But more than that," he stood slowly, meeting her gaze with newfound strength. "She was pregnant." The chamber fell silent except for the hum of the life support systems. The implications hit the Queen like a physical blow. The child? Born 3 days after her execution. The medical base staff couldn't bring themselves to kill an infant, so they brought her to me. I've been caring for her in secret. Commander Thex stepped forward, his weapon half drawn. "This is treason, Your Majesty. Harboring human genetic material is what saved my son's life." The Queen cut him off, her mind racing through possibilities and consequences. "How long have you hidden this, Zephon?" 2 months. She's healthy, intelligent, and she looks at me the way her mother did."
"Without fear, with trust."
His voice softened. "I named her Hope. The weight of command, of species rivalry, of everything she'd built her reign upon, pressed down on Queen Valeria." Her son had committed acts that could be considered treason by her own laws. But he'd also discovered something that challenged the very foundation of their conflict with humanity. "Show me," she said finally. Commander Thex's protest died in his throat as the Queen's expression hardened into something between curiosity and command. Whatever lay ahead would reshape not just their family, but potentially the relationship between two species locked in generations of mistrust. As they walked toward the hidden chambers, the Queen couldn't shake the feeling that her son's simple request for one human was about to change everything she thought she knew about war, peace, and what it truly meant to rule. The path through the palace's lower levels felt longer than usual, each step echoing with implications the Queen couldn't yet fully grasp. Zephon moved ahead with purpose, his earlier grief transformed into protective determination. Behind them, Commander Thex followed with obvious reluctance, his hand never leaving his weapon. "Your Majesty," Thex said quietly, "if the Council discovers this breach of protocol—" "The Council serves me, not the other way around," she replied, though uncertainty gnawed at her confidence. Harboring human genetic material wasn't just against Zenthari law. It violated the Galactic Accords that had ended the last interspecies war. They reached a maintenance corridor she'd never seen before. Zephon pressed his palm against a concealed scanner, and a hidden door slid open, revealing a small but well-equipped living space. Medical equipment hummed softly alongside what appeared to be makeshift furniture scaled down to impossible proportions. Then she heard it, a sound that shouldn't exist on her ship. Laughter. High, melodic, utterly alien, yet somehow familiar. "Hope," Zephon called softly. "Someone wants to meet you." A small figure toddled into view, and Queen Valaria's breath caught in her throat. The human child stood barely 2 feet tall, with soft brown skin and enormous dark eyes that sparkled with curiosity rather than fear. Her tiny hands reached towards Zephon with complete trust. "Zeph," the child giggled, using a shortened version of his name with an ease that spoke of months of interaction. She grabbed his scaled finger and tugged, babbling in a mixture of English and what sounded suspiciously like basic Zenthari words. "She's learning our language?" the Queen asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dr. Martinez started teaching her before," Zephon's voice caught, "and I've continued. She understands simple commands in both languages now. Watch this." He knelt down. "Hope, can you show the nice lady your picture?" The child clapped her hands and ran to a low table, returning with a crude drawing that made the Queen's heart skip. It showed stick figures of different heights, clearly representing Zephon and Hope, but also others. Zenthari figures drawn in purple crayon stood alongside human figures in various colors, all holding hands. "She draws this every day," Zephon explained. "Always the same theme, different species together." Commander Thex stepped closer, his expression shifting from suspicion to something resembling wonder. "How is she so unafraid? Because she's never been taught to fear," Zephon replied. "Dr. Martinez told me that human children aren't born with prejudice. They learn it. Hope has only known kindness from Zenthari, so to her, we're not monsters. We're family." The word hit the Queen like a physical blow. Family. This human child saw her son as family. "Mama Elena?" Hope asked suddenly, looking around with innocent confusion. The silence that followed was devastating. Zephon knelt and pulled the child close, his own eyes glistening. "Mama Elena had to go away, little one, but Zeph is here. Zeph will always be here." Hope seemed to accept this with the resilience of childhood, snuggling against Zephon's scaled chest as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The Queen watched, mesmerized as this tiny human being treated her son, a creature that by all human military doctrine should terrify her, as a source of comfort and safety. "Your Majesty," Commander Thex said slowly, "the implications of this discovery, if humans can trust us, if their young can bond with ours, then everything we've believed about this war is wrong," she finished. The realization felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into an abyss that might be salvation or destruction. Hope toddled over to a corner and returned with a worn stuffed animal, clearly human-made, probably a gift from her mother, but beside it was something else, a small Zenthari toy, the kind given to royal children. They sat together in her tiny hands as if they belonged together. "She doesn't see a difference," the Queen observed. "Because there isn't one," Zephon said. "Not to her. Dr. Martinez was right. Hatred is learned, not innate. Hope proves that our species can coexist, can even love each other." The Queen felt the foundations of her worldview cracking. Every military briefing, every intelligence report, every justification for continued conflict suddenly seemed hollow when faced with this living contradiction to everything she'd been taught. "What are you asking of me, my son? Let her live. Let her grow up here as proof that peace is possible. And when she's old enough, let her choose. Stay with us or return to her people. but as an ambassador of what we could become together. Commander Thex stepped forward. Your Majesty, the risk is worth taking, she said, surprising herself. But not without consequences. If we're going to challenge every assumption about human-Xanthari relations, we need to be prepared for the fallout. Hope looked up at the Queen then, those enormous dark eyes studying her with a child's directness. Without warning, she toddled forward and held up her arms, the universal gesture of a child wanting to be held. The gesture hit Queen Valaria with unexpected force, and before she could think, she was kneeling, allowing this human child to approach without fear. Queen Valaria's hands trembled as Hope's tiny fingers wrapped around one of her claws with complete trust. The child babbled something in her mixture of languages, then pressed her face against the Queen's scaled palm with absolute contentment. The simple gesture shattered every preconception she'd held about humanity. "She's not afraid," she whispered in amazement. "Why would she be?" Zafon asked gently. "You are the only grandmother she's ever known." The word grandmother struck like lightning. This child, this human child, saw her as family. Not as an alien monster, not as an enemy, but as someone who belonged in her small, innocent world. Commander Thex cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Your Majesty, we must consider the political ramifications. If word spreads that we're harboring—"
That we're harboring what?
"A baby?" The Queen's voice carried new authority. "A child who proves that everything we've believed about human nature might be fundamentally wrong?" Hope giggled and pointed at the Queen's crown, reaching toward the glittering crystals with fascination. Without thinking, the Queen removed one of the smaller gems and held it out. The child's eyes widened with delight, but instead of grabbing it selfishly, she held it up to Zafon, wanting to share her gift. "Even her generosity is instinctive," the Queen observed, her voice thick with emotion. "Dr. Martinez said humans evolved as cooperative creatures," Zafon explained. "Their survival depended on working together, caring for each other. The violence we've seen in war, it's learned behavior, trained into them by necessity. This is what they really are." The implications cascaded through the Queen's mind. If humans were naturally cooperative, if their children could bond with alien species without fear, then the entire basis for their conflict was built on misunderstanding. "Show me the medical records," she said suddenly. "Everything from when you were injured." Commander Thex activated a portable display scrolling through the data. The Queen studied Dr. Martinez's treatment logs, her scientific observations, her personal notes about Zafon's condition. What she found there made her blood run cold. She documented everything, she said slowly. Every procedure, every medication, every observation about Xanthari physiology. This wasn't just healing, it was research. Zafon's expression darkened. "Mother, you can't think she was using me as a test subject." "No," the Queen interrupted, her voice filled with dawning realization. "Look at these notes. She wasn't studying you for military advantage. She was trying to understand how to better treat Xanthari injuries. She was creating a medical database to help future human doctors save more of our people." The revelation hit them all simultaneously. Dr. Martinez hadn't just saved Zafon. She'd been laying groundwork for systematic cooperation between their medical systems. "There's more," Commander Thex said quietly, pulling up additional files. The other human prisoners contributed their expertise as well. The engineer helped repair our damaged life support systems. The botanist shared information about food crops that could grow in Xanthari soil. They weren't just being helpful, they were actively working toward mutual benefit. Hope, oblivious to the momentous conversation, had wandered back to her toys. She arranged them carefully, human and Xanthari figures together the way she drew them in her pictures. To her, this was simply how the world should be. "What kind of species sacrifices themselves to help their enemies?" the Queen asked, more to herself than to anyone present. "The kind we should have tried to understand instead of fighting," Zafon answered. A communication alert chimed through the ship's systems. Commander Thex checked his device, his expression growing grave. "Your Majesty, the War Council is requesting your immediate presence." There's been a development in the human conflict. The Queen felt the weight of two different futures pressing down on her. In one direction lay the continuation of a war built on misunderstanding and fear. In the other lay the possibility of peace, represented by a human child who saw her as family. "What kind of development?" she asked. "Human forces have sent a communication?" "They're requesting a prisoner exchange." The words hung in the air like a challenge to fate itself. Hope looked up at the mention of human, her young mind perhaps recognizing something familiar in the word. "They want their people back," the Queen said. "People who are already dead," Commander Thex replied grimly. How do we explain that we executed prisoners who were actively helping us? The question crystallized everything. The humans didn't know their people were dead. They were offering to trade prisoners, probably expecting to reunite with the very individuals who had challenged every assumption about human nature. Hope toddled over and tugged on the Queen's robes, holding up her stuffed animal and Zenthari toy together. In her innocent gesture lay the answer to questions that had plagued two civilizations. We tell them the truth, the Queen said finally, and we offer them something more valuable than a prisoner exchange. What could be more valuable than their people's lives? Queen Valaria looked down at Hope, who was now trying to stack her toys into a tower that kept falling down, but never discouraged her from trying again. Proof that their sacrifice meant something. Proof that peace is possible. We offer them their future. The decision crystallized in her mind with startling clarity. This moment would define not just her reign, but the relationship between two species who had been fighting over shadows while the light waited patiently to be acknowledged. Commander, prepare a response to the human communication. Tell them we accept their request for contact, but that we have something more important than prisoners to discuss. The War Council chamber buzzed with agitation as Queen Valaria entered with Hope cradled in her arms. The sight of a human child in the royal presence sent shockwaves through the assembled military leaders, their voices rising in immediate protest. Your Majesty, what is the meaning of this breach of security? Admiral Corax demanded, his battle scars pulsing with indignation. This is Hope Martinez, the Queen announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. The daughter of Dr. Elena Martinez, the human prisoner who saved Prince Zephon's life. General Voss leaned forward, his cybernetic eye focusing on the child. The humans we executed 3 months ago? How does their offspring still live? Because even our most hardened soldiers couldn't bring themselves to murder an innocent baby, the Queen replied. And because my son has been caring for her, learning from her, discovering truths that could change everything. Hope seemed fascinated by the assembled military officers, her large eyes moving from one fierce Zenthari face to another without the slightest trace of fear. She babbled something in her mixed language and reached toward Admiral Corax's gleaming metals. She's not afraid of us, he observed, his voice filled with confusion. Why should she be? She's never been taught that Zenthari are monsters. To her, we're simply people who happen to look different. Commander Thex stepped forward, activating a holographic display. The implications of this discovery extend far beyond one child, Honored Council. We've analyzed Dr. Martinez's medical research. She wasn't just treating the prince. She was developing comprehensive protocols for humans and Thari medical cooperation. The data flowed across the chamber's screens, detailed anatomical studies, pharmacological compatibility charts, surgical techniques adapted for interspecies treatment. It was the work of someone planning for a future where humans and Zenthari would work together, not fight each other. They were never planning to use this against us, General Voss said slowly. This is collaborative research. More than that, Zephon said, entering the chamber with Hope's toys. Dr. Martinez told me about human philosophy, their belief in something they call paying it forward, helping others not for personal gain, but because it creates a better world for everyone. Hope clapped her hands at seeing her toys, trying to climb down from the Queen's arms to reach them. The Queen carefully lowered her to the floor, watching as the child immediately began arranging human and Zenthari figures together. Every day the same pattern, she explained to the council.
Unity.
She's never conceived of a world where our species are enemies. Admiral Corax knelt beside Hope, his massive frame dwarfing the tiny human. She looked up at him with curiosity, then held out one of her Zenthari toys as a gift. The gesture was so innocent, so trusting, that the battle-hardened admiral's expression softened visibly. In 40 years of military service, he said quietly, no human has ever offered me anything but violence. Yet this child sees you as someone worth sharing with, the Queen finished. Because that's what humans taught her. Not fear, not hatred, but generosity. The communication console chimed with an urgent message. Commander Thex activated it, and a human face appeared on the screen. A woman with striking features and familiar eyes. This is Captain Sarah Martinez of the Human Alliance vessel Meridian, the transmission began. We're requesting information about our missing research team, including my sister Dr. Elena Martinez and her unborn child. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Hope looked up at the screen and babbled excitedly, pointing at the woman who bore such a strong resemblance to the mother she'd never really known. She recognizes the genetic similarity, Zephon whispered. This must be Hope's aunt. Queen Valaria felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This human captain was Elena's sister, looking for family members who were already dead, except for the child who sat playing with alien toys on the floor of her enemy's war council. Your Majesty, General Voss said urgently, how do we respond? If we reveal what happened, we tell the truth, she said firmly, and we show them what their sacrifice accomplished. She activated the response channel, knowing that her next words would either start a war or end one. Captain Martinez, this is Queen Valaria of the Zenthari Empire. Your sister, Dr. Elena Martinez, died 3 months ago, giving birth to a daughter who has been under our protection ever since. The human captain's face went through a range of emotions. Shock, grief, then growing anger. You're holding my niece prisoner? No, Captain, we're raising her as family. Your sister saved my son's life, and in doing so, she taught us something that could change the relationship between our species forever. Hope toddled over to the communication screen, pressing her tiny hands against the display as if trying to reach through to touch the familiar face. She said something that sounded like Mama, then pointed at herself and said clearly, Hope. Captain Martinez's expression transformed as she saw her niece, alive, healthy, and apparently happy in the care of the very beings she'd been trained to fight. She's beautiful, the captain whispered. And she's not afraid of you, because your sister taught her not to be. Captain Martinez, I believe your sister died trying to build a bridge between our peoples. Her daughter has become the living proof that such a bridge is possible. The human captain was quiet for a long moment, studying the scene before her. A human child playing peacefully among Zenthari military leaders, all of whom were watching her with something resembling protective affection. What are you proposing? She asked finally. A meeting. Face to face. Let us show you what your sister accomplished, and discuss whether her dream of peace can become reality. The decision hung in the balance, two species standing at a crossroads with a child as their guide toward an uncertain future. Captain Sarah Martinez materialized in the transport bay 3 days later, flanked by 2 human marines whose weapons remained holstered but ready. Queen Valaria waited with Hope in her arms, flanked by her own guards, in a carefully choreographed show of mutual caution and respect. The moment Hope saw her aunt, she squealed with delight and reached toward her with outstretched arms. The resemblance between the human women was unmistakable. The same warm brown eyes, the same gentle features that had made Dr. Elena so memorable. Hello, little one, Captain Martinez whispered, her voice thick with emotion as she accepted her niece. I'm your Aunt Sarah, Hope babbled excitedly, switching between English, Zenthari, and her own invented words, as she tried to communicate everything at once. She pointed at Queen Valaria and said clearly, Grandma Queen? Then pointed at Zephon and said, Zeph brother. She's created her own family structure, Captain Martinez observed, wonder evident in her voice. These aren't her captors, they're her people. As she is ours, the Queen confirmed. Captain, your sister's sacrifice changed more than just my son's life. She challenged everything we believed about humanity. They moved through the ship's corridors, Hope chattering constantly and pointing out familiar sights to her aunt. She showed off her room, her toys, her drawings, all evidence of a life filled with care and attention rather than imprisonment. The medical bay where Elena worked, Captain Martinez said as they passed a familiar doorway. Where she saved my life, Zephon added softly, and where she taught me that healing was more important than winning. They entered a conference room where displays showed Dr. Elena's research, not just her medical work, but personal logs she'd recorded during her time aboard the Zenthari vessel. She knew she might not survive, Queen Valaria explained, so she documented everything, her thoughts, her observations, her hopes for the future. Elena's voice filled the room from archived recordings. Day 15 aboard the Zenthari vessel. Prince Zephon is responding well to treatment, but more importantly, he's asking questions about human culture, human values. There's genuine curiosity here, not the hatred we expected. I think we've been fighting shadows instead of understanding each other. Captain Martinez listened with tears streaming down her face as her sister's voice continued. If something happens to me, I want my child to grow up knowing that peace is possible. She represents the future, not human, not Zenthari, but something new, something better. Hope, oblivious to the emotional weight of the moment, had found her way to Captain Martinez's sidearm and was trying to figure out how it worked. Instead of stopping her, the captain carefully showed her the safety mechanisms while explaining why weapons should never be touched. You're teaching her about dangers, Queen Valaria observed, not scaring her away from understanding. "Elena always said knowledge defeats fear," the captain replied. Apparently she was practicing what she preached even here. "Captain, we've prepared a complete record of your sister's time with us, including her medical breakthroughs and cultural observations. Her work has already saved 17 Zenthari lives using techniques she developed while treating the prince. And her botanical research has increased our food production by 12%, General Voss added. Your sister wasn't just helping us, she was revolutionizing our understanding of interspecies cooperation." Captain Martinez studied the data with growing amazement. "She came here as a prisoner and ended up advancing both our civilizations." "More than that," the Queen said. "She proved that our species can work together, can trust each other, can even love each other." Hope had fallen asleep in her aunt's arms, exhausted by the excitement of meeting new family. She clutched her stuffed animal in one hand and her Zenthari toy in the other, symbolic of the two worlds she'd bridged simply by existing. "What happens now?" Captain Martinez asked. "That depends on what you want to happen," Queen Valeria replied. "We could arrange for Hope's return to human space." "No," the captain said firmly. "Elena was right. Hope represents something bigger than either of our species. If she stays here, she could be the first of a new generation, children who grow up seeing cooperation instead of conflict. And if more humans came here? Scientists, doctors, teachers? You'd welcome them? After what your sister showed us?" Captain, "I'd welcome an entire colony." The implications hung in the air between them, the possibility of true peace, built not on treaties or truces, but on understanding and shared purpose. Hope stirred in her sleep, murmuring something that sounded like "together" in both languages. Even in dreams she was building bridges. "My sister would be proud," Captain Martinez whispered. "She always believed the future belonged to those brave enough to trust each other." Looking at the sleeping child who called alien beings her family, Queen Valeria realized the future was no longer a distant dream. It was happening right now, one small act of trust at a time. 6 months later, the joint human Zenthari research station orbited the border world of Kepler 442b, a testament to what Elena Martinez had started with one act of compassion. Queen Valeria watched from the observation deck as Hope, now walking confidently and chattering in 3 languages, led a group of newly arrived human children on a tour of their new home. "Look," Hope pointed excitedly at the Zenthari engineers working alongside human technicians. Friends working together, the children offspring of the scientists and diplomats who had volunteered for this unprecedented experiment, followed Hope with the fearless curiosity that seemed to define the younger generation. They'd been here only a week, but already they were treating their Zenthari counterparts as playmates rather than aliens. Captain Martinez approached, now wearing the insignia of the station's co-commander alongside Zenthari Admiral Korax. The unlikely partnership had proven remarkably effective, combining human innovation with Zenthari systematic precision. "The Council of Worlds has approved our request for expansion," she announced. 12 more families from each species, plus a full medical exchange program. "Elena's dream is becoming reality," Queen Valeria said softly, "more than she ever imagined." "Hope, come here for a moment." The little girl ran over, her movement followed by a small Zenthari child named Kex, who had become her constant companion. They held hands naturally, the way children do when differences mean nothing and friendship means everything. "Aunt Sarah, are the new friends coming soon?" Hope asked. "Very soon. And they're bringing children just like you. Humans who will grow up with Zenthari friends, and Zenthari who will grow up with human friends." Hope clapped her hands with delight, then turned to Kex and translated into simple Zenthari. The young alien's eyes widened with excitement, and he responded in broken English peppered with clicks and whistles. "He says his parents will be happy," Hope translated. "More friends to play with." Dr. James Chen, the station's head of xenobiology, approached with his latest report. "Your Majesty, Captain, the integration results continue to exceed all expectations. The children aren't just adapting. They're creating entirely new social patterns. They're developing a hybrid language, shared cultural practices, even collaborative art forms." "Show me," the Queen requested. They moved to the education center, where human and Zenthari children worked together on a massive mural depicting their vision of the future. Ships from both species traveled peacefully through space, planets bloomed with mixed colonies, and families of various species shared homes and celebrations. "They're not just learning about each other, Doctor," Chen explained. "They're imagining a universe where species diversity is strength, not conflict." Hope pointed to a section of the mural where she'd painted herself surrounded by beings of different species, all holding hands in a circle. "This is tomorrow," she announced with the certainty of a 3-year-old who had never known anything but acceptance. From the mouths of babes, Captain Martinez murmured. A communication alert interrupted their observation. Commander Thex's image appeared on the display, calling from the Zentari homeworld. Your Majesty, the High Council has reached a decision regarding the peace proposals. They've voted to formally end hostilities with humanity and establish the Martinez Accords for interspecies cooperation. The name hit Queen Valeria with emotional force. The Martinez Accords? In honor of Dr. Elena Martinez and her daughter Hope, whose example made this peace possible. The first treaty in galactic history named for its youngest citizen. Hope looked up at the mention of her mother's name, her young face serious for a moment. Mama Elena would be happy, she said simply. She liked it when everyone was friends. The simplicity of the statement encapsulated everything they'd worked toward. Elena Martinez hadn't set out to change the course of interstellar relations. She'd simply wanted to help a sick child. But in that act of compassion, she'd planted seeds that grew into understanding, trust, and ultimately peace. The first colony ships launch next month, Admiral Korax announced, joining the group. Mixed crews, shared missions, common goals. What started with one human doctor's courage is becoming a new chapter in galactic civilization. Hope tugged on Queen Valeria's robes, holding up a new drawing, this one showing not just humans and Zentari together, but other species as well. Her innocent imagination had already moved beyond the current miracle to envision something even greater. More friends? She asked hopefully. The adults exchanged looks of amazement and possibility. In Hope's simple question lay the future, not just peace between humans and Zentari, but a galaxy where diversity was celebrated, where different species worked together, where children grew up knowing that alien simply meant friend I haven't met yet. Yes, little one, Queen Valeria said, lifting Hope into her arms for what had become their evening ritual. Many more friends. As the station's lights dimmed to simulate nightfall, families from 2 species settled into routines that would have been impossible to imagine just months before. Human lullabies mixed with Zentari sleep songs, bedtime stories featured heroes from multiple worlds, and dreams were filled with possibilities that transcended the boundaries of species. Elena Martinez had asked for one chance to save a life. Her daughter had given the galaxy a chance to save itself. And in the gentle breathing of sleeping children, human, Zentari, and soon others, the future whispered its promise of endless cooperation, understanding, and peace. Hope's last words before drifting off to sleep were spoken in her characteristic mixture of languages, but their meaning was universal. Tomorrow, we make more friends together. In that simple statement lay the foundation of a new era, built not on treaties or conquest, but on the revolutionary idea that love, not fear, should guide the galaxy's destiny.